shadows between worlds. It all began one morning when I woke up with a strange feeling, as though the world around me had shifted. The sun shone brighter, but the air felt different, colder, heavier. I didn't know what it meant until I saw her. She stood by my door in the shadows of the trees, wearing the same cloak as I, but her gaze was foreign, disconnected from my emotions. "You, are you?" but not entirely. Her voice was familiar, yet distant. I opened the door, and we entered my apartment. "What are you doing here?" I asked, still trying to make sense of what was happening. "I'm from the future, and I've come to warn you." She said it without any emotion, as if it were just simple information. I felt the cold of metal under her fingertips, though she held nothing. "The future changes because of one crucial event," she continued. "But this change could lead to the disappearance of everything you know." I listened, trying to comprehend, but my mind was consumed by one question. How could this be possible? Yesterday, you made a decision that, as I know now, will lead to this shadow between realities. Her voice was calm, yet powerful. I remembered the moment clearly, a meeting with a businessman who offered a deal I couldn't refuse. When I signed the contract, I felt a temptation that went beyond all reason. "You signed an agreement that will alter not only your future, but everything around you," she went on. "You and I are no longer just two separate selves. We are parts of one essence, fighting for the right to exist." My mind was overwhelmed with thoughts. How could I change this? Was it even possible? "There's only one thing you can do," she said. "Change this moment. Don't sign that contract." It sounded simple, but the decision was incredibly difficult. I knew that refusing the deal meant losing stability, yet on the other hand, it could save the world from destruction. I stood at a crossroads, like in the darkness between two paths. The future I saw in her eyes was hazy and terrifying. "Don't sign," she repeated. "This moment is the key to everything." I looked at the contract still lying on the table. Refusing was my only option. But would I have the courage? Then she extended her hand and grasped mine. The cold feel of metal on her fingertips felt like we were both holding on to the same edge of reality. "You can change this," she said with final certainty. And I signed my refusal. But the world around me was no longer the same. At first there was confusion. The apartment felt foreign, yet somehow familiar. The furniture, the decor, everything was in its place. But the air felt different, lighter, yet suffocating. I wandered through the empty streets where no one seemed to notice me. The city had changed. The familiar sights were now distorted. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, and the noise was a haunting whisper. Days turned into nights, and I continued to search for answers. The future I tried to avoid was now a reality I had to navigate, a world that was slipping further from my grasp with each passing moment. One evening, as I sat alone in a dimly lit cafe, a figure approached me. It was another version of myself, just like the one from the future. But this version wasn't cold or distant. His eyes held sadness, regret, and determination. "You've done it," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "You've changed the course of everything." "But at what cost?" I whispered back, feeling the weight of what I had done. He nodded solemnly. "Every decision has its ripple effects. The future we once knew is gone, and we're left to piece together the fragments." "How do we fix this?" I asked, my voice shaking. He leaned in closer, his gaze steady. "We can't go back to where we started, but we can guide what's ahead. There are still paths we can take, choices that will steer us toward a better reality. We just have to find them." We sat there in silence for a while, both lost in thought. The cafe seemed quieter now, almost empty, save for the faint hum of the past we shared. As we parted ways, I felt a glimmer of hope. The future wasn't completely lost. It had fractured, but it still held the possibility of redemption. Days passed, and I began to make choices, small ones at first. Each decision was an attempt to mend the broken pieces of reality, to redirect the flow of events towards something brighter, something that felt more true. The world didn't revert instantly, but with every step I took, it shifted slightly, more aligned with the future I once dreamed of. And as I walked through the streets that were no longer unfamiliar, I knew that while the shadows between worlds still lingered, the light of possibility was growing brighter.